right, a successful transfer over onto our punty. And Tom delicately bounces right down into that cup. And out he comes. Let's get a big round of applause for those two moves. A lot of technical stuff happening here on the stage here today. Alrighty, folks, it's showtime. Welcome, everyone, far and wide here to the Corning Museum of Glass. Thanks for tuning in online. Thanks for coming in person. Hi, folks. How you doing here today? We've joined us on a very special day. We've got Bree Chesler here as our guest artist. Let's welcome Bree to the stage. Woo! We've been having a lot of fun here with Bree this week, and we have an amazing team helping Bree out with this very complicated, ambitious sculpture. We're so excited that we had to start early a little bit. So we're actually joining the process about well underway because of all the parts and pieces that we needed to put together for this. But I'll go into more detail as we go along. I want to introduce the rest of the team as well. We got Katie Hubbs over here as our lead gaffer. Tom Ryder's going to be doing a little bit of heavy lifting for us here today, really stepping in and helping us out. We got Catherine Ayers over here helping Bree transfer one of the components over onto a punty. This is going to have a lot of parts put together as one. My name's Helen Tegler. I'm going to be narrating the process. I will certainly be jumping in to help and assist as well. So if you have any questions here today, we'd love to answer those for you. You might need just be a little patient with me for able to answer them live. We also have Emily monitoring our online presence. So if you have any curiosities online, please feel free to field them through there, and she'll be able to answer. But this entire process, we'd like to also give a big thank you to Glasma, who's one of our big sponsors here at the Corning Museum of Glass. We are using all Glasma glass for making this sculpture here today, and we switched over to Glasma this year, and it's been a fantastic material and glass for us to play with, and we found it particularly fun for making sculpture, which is exactly what we're going to be working here today. So to catch you up on all the action that's been happening already, we've got a very complicated sculpture that involves two different bubbles that are going to be joined together as one. Up here at the table, we've got a couple examples of the pieces that we've made with Bree over the last few days. This residency started on Monday and will go through Friday here at the museum. So if you are tuning in online or here locally, come and check us out. Come and join us. We can be here with Bree until Friday afternoon. But to get this started, we had to make a few components, and mostly we started out with a few stuff cups. So for glass blowers out there, you're probably very familiar with this process, but for stuff cups, it's just requiring making a cup or really a tall bowl form and then putting it away into an annealing oven for safekeeping. By doing a stuff cup, it allows us to further control the color a little bit more on these objects. So we've got two different stuff cups that we did here within the last hour. Tom has what will be the outside of our sculpture, similar to this one that we did yesterday. There's kind of an outside structure and an internal structure. So the outside is what Tom has on the end of the iron, and the inside is what Bree is concentrating on this side. So the stuff cup and the coloration that Bree has created has a beautiful green on the inside and a fade from pink to purple along the form, and then we wrapped a stripe of color around that form to have a really fun pattern along that surface. So we've got lots of fades and transitions, and that's really one of the beautiful things about the way that Bree has been working is it's all about color. Now, colored glass, we do not make any of our own colored glass. Instead, we buy it all from a manufacturer in Germany called Reichenbach. We can buy our color in a lot of different forms, whether they're in solid rods or in small particles called frit. We're using a combination of solid color and frit for this particular sculpture, and each use of that color will also be slightly different in the way that it looks. So anytime we use solid bar color, we're going to get smooth and even coloration. So we chose the solid bar to create these beautiful fades along the surface to get that transparency and opaqueness working together. If we use the frit is very versatile. You can pretty much roll any blob of glass through a little bit of frit, and that will stick and melt into the surface, usually giving you a little bit more of a polka dot effect in the final visual. Now, I will mention that none of our colors will look the same when they are hot, so it's a little hard to identify all these beautiful colors here today. But at the end of this process, and after we do a little post-production with the video that we're filming right now, we'll be able to have an image of that final piece at the end of our video, and our video will be put onto our YouTube channel archives. So you can see that beautiful wrap of detail here with the piece that Bree and Catherine are working on. This will again be the inside structure for our piece. At this point, they're just going to need to pretty much keep that warm while we finish up this outer bubble that we can open up and then stuff one inside of another. Eventually, everything needs to be removed from a blowpipe, so we often put tight constrictions called jacklines at the very top, and that helps narrow and weaken the glass, giving it a good place to separate and break later on purposefully. Now, Bree Chesler has been with us, as I mentioned, all week long, and we've invited her here all the way from Seattle. So she is a living and working glass artist in Seattle, Washington. And these residencies really give folks an opportunity to try to push their skills, push their options in glass, and sometimes develop new work. And that's exactly what Bree's been doing with us this week. This is, of course, all in her personal style. It's very reminiscent of the type of work that she makes all the time. But she came here with a great plan, had everything figured out that she wanted to accomplish, but we are actually creating brand new types of work for her. Now, Tom's going to start to inflate this piece just a little bit. And we've got options. We can have an assistant blow into the blowpipe for us, but we also have an alternate inflation device here. So he attached a blow hose to the far end and taps on a pedal down below. That releases a little bit of air pressure into the pipe and gives him the ability to inflate with a little bit more control as he's working. So since this work is experimental to a certain level, it means that we've never done this process before, which is also one of the fun things about bringing artists in here to work with our team. We invite artists in sometimes that are glass makers and sometimes that are non-glass makers, but the ability to work with our team and to be able to, for our team to try new and unusual things is a great advantage for us. Glass blowing is really a team sport, and you're going to see a lot of teamwork here today to make this dream come true for Bree, making this beautiful piece. You don't often see glass workers working by themselves unless they're making something really simple that might not require additional bits or other additions. And when you start to get into a slightly heavier and larger scale, like we're working here today as well, that's always just nice to have a few other people to help turn the pipe, open and close doors, bring different components for you, and make the process a little bit more comfortable. Now, in order to shape glass, it's really all about temperature control. Wherever the glass is hot, it's going to want to move, whether we're trying to inflate it, letting gravity elongate or compress, depending on the angles in which we hold our pipes. So we need to keep that glass nice and warm the whole time we work. So we're actually working from 2 different stations here today. These reheating furnaces are around 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 1150 Celsius. And at these high temperatures, it remelts the glass pretty readily. The melting furnace, where we hold all of our molten glass, that's the big silver one there in the middle. That has about 1,000 pounds of clear glass, and we do keep that furnace up and running all the time. It takes nearly a week to get a furnace slowly up in temperature and full of glass. And then it takes about a week to bring a furnace down in temperature, and you need to empty all the glass out of it before you let it go down in temperature. So we typically leave our furnaces on 24/7, 365 days out of the year, only turning them off if there's some sort of repair or emergency. But these reheating chambers, there's no actual glass inside of there. So this is just considered a tool that we can use along with the process of all the other tools that we have. So that furnace only takes about an hour, maybe an hour and a half to come up to temperature in the morning and ready for the day's work. Tom's working at a slightly larger hole, and this one on the left is a little bit smaller. But the doors are open and close, accommodates larger and smaller work. And we're certainly going to be opening a lot of doors later on in this process. Because once we join these 2 bubbles together, they're going to encapsulate around kind of like a seed pod with a seed capture inside. And then we've got lots of parts and tentacles to add to the sculpture as well. All right, so I think we're about finished with the shaping of this particular bubble. As we mentioned, glass really can't get too cold, so Bree is just babysitting the insides over here on the other bench. We work with a lot of folks throughout the years, and sometimes people show up with solid ideas, and sometimes people show up with a little bit more of a loosey-goosey approach to their residency. And I would say Bree is making really good use of this time. She came in with a master plan. She's got beautiful illustrations. And every morning she comes in and says, okay, this is what we're going to do for this hour, this hour, this hour. These are the parts that we need to make this part. And we've put a big challenge in front of her today because we've got our morning session of working, we've got the live stream, and then we've got a special event this evening that she'll be doing a 3rd demonstration late tonight. So that was a lot of parts to figure out and accumulate before we got rolling. But I'm going to take a moment to bring up the image of the object that we're working on here today. I don't know, can you focus in on that, Jason? So this is the illustration that she brought to the table, and we'll get it focused on here in just a second. There we go. So Tom has the big piece that will be the outside, and then Bree has that beautiful fade with all the little stripies on it, and that'll be the inside. And then all these little tentacles, those are all pre-made and safe, warm, and happy in an oven so that we can add those in later on in the process. But she's come every day with these beautiful illustrations and drawings. And so really has a good game plan of approaching this unusual sculpture. Now, Bree has been a glassworker for a little over 10 years, again, focused mostly in the Seattle area. But she started out in undergraduate as a metal and foundries worker. She works a lot of mixed media in her projects in general. And some of the discussions that we've had about how these pieces will be finished or what other kind of components might be added, she's already got game plans on extra things she can add with different materials later on at the process. She eventually wants to add a little bit of kinetic work to this body of work as well. So a few of the pieces that we made, like this big purple one the other day, she left holes in the top of the little nubs, and those will be receptacles to be able to add other mixed media parts into that piece later on in the process. But now that we've got the bubble blown up to the point that we need, Tom's going to start working on making a puntee. Now, puntees are meant to be delicate and temporary connections that hold on to the bottom of your piece so that you can break it free from that original blowpipe and start to reshape the other end. When we transferred Bree's component over onto a puntee, we actually made what we call a blow puntee. We drilled a hole through the bottom of that form and then made a little donut on the end of our blowpipes. So when we attach that puntee, it has a hole that's open all the way through. That gives us the ability to seal off the other end, as they've done, and then reinflate that piece once it's on the puntee. But that's pretty atypical of your classic transfer. For this puntee that Tom's going to be adding, this will just be a nice solid puntee. And this is going to be the puntee that will hold on to all of the work, all of the components, all the additions that we're going to be adding. So while we want it to be delicate enough to separate, we need a lot of strength for the next hour to be able to hold all these pieces and the weight of all this work. So he goes in to make a first layer and then allows that to cool down, become nice and solid, and then we'll go for a second layer of glass and shape just the tip of it to stick to our objects. This is what we call a cold core. Yeah, we're still talking about the plan, making sure that everybody knows their roles and what we're going to approach and how we're going to approach it. It's going to get pretty crazy here in a little bit as all this stuff starts coming together. So there we've got a nice blob of glass. But by cooling down that center core, we'll still have a little bit more stability than if we just try to gather one big hot blob and then shape it from there. Now, while Katie's waiting for that puntee to be brought, she's making sure that the temperatures are just right on this piece. If our glass is too hot, it's going to be malleable, meaning it won't want to crack and separate away from that blowpipe. If it's too cold, those cracks can move beyond that constriction line that we added and end up cracking down into the piece itself. So we want to set up a condition where we've got a nice weak constriction line, narrowing the glass, telling it where we want it to break, a nice solid connection with the puntee to make sure that everything is just the right temperature so that once he catches that piece, it's also not flopping around too much with too much hot glass holding on to it. So it's a really delicate balance of timing, temperature, and teamwork that come together in these moments of transferring pieces from one iron to the other. So Katie goes for one final flash here today. A flash is just a short heat. It's not getting anything melty. It's just keeping it above the 1,000-degree range, which is a pretty critical range for glass. If we get glass too cold, it ends up thermally shocking, and that usually happens a little bit below that 1,000-degree range. All right, nice and juicy. This will be part of that structure. When we go to attach a standard punny, we usually make it a little colder, but we're actually going to just really stick this straight on. And then cut in a brand new jack line in there. When we cut in this new constriction, that'll be the place that this separates later on. So we'll be able to keep that little nub on the bottom. And it's a little bit more of an insurance policy. Now, once this piece is complete in its final shaping, Bree will be able to cold work that little nub off. And she actually mentioned wanting to do some mixed media on the back end of this sculpture. So even that little bit of extra glass left on the piece will give her a place to carve and grind and be able to readjust and add things to it. So a little water dropped down into that crease line, and a light tap is all it should take to break this free. Great teamwork. Yeah, big round of applause. Fantastic. All right, so now we've got the outer husk of this sculpture transferred and a hole. So now Bree needs to go and start to open this up so that it can create that kind of seed pod effect. And then eventually we'll take that part and stuff it right inside the others. But since we've got a few moments now, this is a great time for me to address any questions that we might have in the crowd. Anything that you're curious about? Yes? How are you going to open that piece? Pure talent and magic. That's what's going to happen. Yeah, they're actually going to use a torch. Torches allow us to focus heat in very specific areas. So she'll probably come over here and start to use the torch to heat a line. And when she gets that line nice and hot, she can cut up through that line because the glass will be nice and soft, but the rest of it will stay structural because it's a little bit colder. So that's how we kind of did this purple piece. This was what we did our second day here with Bree. The first day was all part making. We made all the little tentacles and all the little parts and pieces and kind of got our ahead of the game of the parts pieces game. So we made all these parts, and then this was blown out into a form, and we puntied it. Here you can see on the back side, this is where that punty was attached. So once we puntied that, then she heated this up and opened this form up. We also had pre-made the inside little nubby part as well, and that was shoved inside, and then we just kind of reheated and closed the form back around that shape. So this will be a very similar approach. We need to slice her up, open it wider than what we need just to be able to get that first piece in, and then we rewarm it and close it back up. It's kind of like those ships in a bottle or pennies in a bottle. Anybody ever see those? And you're like, how did they get that penny in there? Well, it's because they create a tube, and then they put the penny down in the cold area, and then they heat just the opening and seal down the opening of that tube to create that little bottle and trap it inside. Any other questions? All right. Well, again, those folks that are tuning in online, thank you so much for joining us here today. If you do have any questions or curiosities, Emily is readily and available there to answer any of your curiosities. All right, so a little trim. Pretty massive trim, actually. This is a really thick piece. That's a lot of glass. Asking a lot of those little shears. But Tom persevered. You got it. Yeah, he's talking about the gloves can be kind of restricting. You don't often see a lot of glass makers wearing gloves. In general, the hand where we're touching pipes, it's not hot. We get used to understanding what temperatures are in and what's hot in a shop and what's not hot in a shop. So gloves tend to take away dexterity, making it difficult to handle tools, turn pipes. And if you start out as a beginner with gloves on, then it's going to teach you to put your hands on things that you shouldn't put your hands on. So I know it seems counterintuitive that we've got 2,000 degrees on the end of a blowpipe and we don't wear gloves handling 2,000 degrees, but trust me, we're not touching 2,000 degrees. It will command your attention like nothing else will. Now, I'm not saying that we don't learn a few hard lessons as beginners, and even as experienced glassworkers, you might get an occasional burn. But in general, gloves are not necessarily the answer to that solution. Now, we will see a lot of gloves being worn for sculpture, however, and that's generally getting your hands really close, pinching and pulling, tweezing and manipulating that glass, but you have somebody else handling the tool for you. All right, so we got some great questions online. Thank you so much. One of our questions is, how does it feel to cut glass? Well, it really depends on the temperature of that material. When the glass is really, really hot, it's really, really soft. So if you're looking at cutting something like taffy or an orange peel, that's pretty easy. Now, the tricky thing is that you put your thumbnail really close to that glass as you're cutting. So if you want to experience cutting glass for yourself, maybe get yourself an orange peel and a really hot blow dryer and try to cut the orange peel as a blow dryer is blasting on your thumb, and it still won't be as hot as what you feel with glass. But the trick of cutting all the way around a form like that is to have enough heat so that it's soft that you can get all the way around in that cut, but also have enough structure to the piece that it's not collapsing and wiggling in on you as you're trying to form it. So it is a delicate balance, and you have to work quickly and efficiently often to get all the way around to be able to shape that glass. You might even heard it hit the ground, and it was pretty much solid by the time it hits that ground. Now, we did have a second question online. Again, thank you for those, and keep them coming. They're wondering, how do we invite folks here to to join us for a week residency here at the museum? That can really be a lot of different factors. Sometimes we invite artists because of a particular exhibition. Sometimes we invite artists because of other special programming that we do here at the museum. Sometimes our curatorial department have someone that they might want to feature or bring in to be able to focus on work. Sometimes we also collaborate with other museums. So every year, the Rockwell downtown has an anti-gravity residency, and that they do an installation there at the museum, and we invite that artist to come and work with our team for a couple days. What's really exciting about that particular residency is that it's usually a non-glass person, someone who's never touched glass or has very little experience with the material. So we as a team really become their gaffers, and we make things based on their designs. And we're not necessarily trying to train that person to become a glass artist, but we want to add that as a part of their language and repertoire, give them a better understanding of the material, and hope that maybe they can incorporate glass in the future. Those residencies also give our team a wonderful opportunity to play and experiment. And often when you're working with someone who's not a glass artist, they have a very unique approach to how they think glass might work, and so it often gives us some really fun challenges. But for Bree, we wanted to bring her in because she is such a beautiful, colorful artist, and we're celebrating our Brilliant Color Show up in the 35 Centuries galleries. It is a wonderful exhibition that's up right now. You definitely need to come check out. It's all about colored glass and some of the major changes that happened in the late 1800s, early 1900s in the development of new types of glasses and combinations of colors. Now, glass has been colored for almost the beginning, about 4,000 years ago, but not all of the objects in history were different colors joined together. And that's because glass color comes through chemistry. You need to add a metallic oxide into the raw materials to create a color. So things like cobalt for dark blue and manganese for purple, iron for green. But if you're formulating your glass and you're mixing your raw materials of your silica sand, soda ash, limestone, and metallic oxides together, every tweak of that formula can create a different expansion and contraction of that glass. Because most every material in the world has some sort of expansion and contraction to it, meaning as it heats and it cools, it flexes. So if you have two different types of glasses that expand and contract at different rates, they might melt together and you can make an object. But as the glass cools, it might shrink at a different rate, and then the glass gets stressed and pops apart or breaks. So glass makers started to recognize, especially the carving industry, started to recognize how a lot of these glasses, as they tried to mix and match them, really weren't working well together. So we see a resurgence of the attention to detail in the chemistry of glasses as they started to make sure that they would work together to make really beautiful combinations. So that Brilliant Color Show up in the 35 Centuries galleries is on display, and I highly suggest everyone come and check it out while you're with us. But that's one of the main reasons that we invited Bree as a very colorful artist to come and celebrate that spirit. Did you have a question? Yeah, so we got another question here in-house about Blown Away. Who knows about Blown Away? Anybody out there? A lot of people do. It's been a fantastic Netflix series that was all about glass blowing. It was a classic competition series where they start out with 10 glass blowers. And they give them various challenges throughout the season, sending somebody home every episode. And then when it gets down to the final episode and the final challenge, the Corning Museum of Glass has sent a contingent of 3 glass blowers for each of those final contestants to assist them in their final sculpture and exhibition. We also host the winner of that competition for a residency. So that's another way that we were able to support artists through that residency program. So we have invited, we had 4 seasons and a Christmas special. And did it improve or make more people aware of glass? And did it encourage people to come to the museum? Absolutely, absolutely. And not just here at the Corning Museum of Glass, but as a whole with the glass community, we found, one, it was kind of a controversial conversation of whether it should be a competition. So we get a lot of lively conversation online about some of that opinions on the show. But we also find that it has just made glass, a lot of people aware that glass even exists. I myself didn't know glass was a thing until I went to college and discovered it as part of the art program that I was already a part of. And that's a very common thing. Not too many people are really aware of it until they are. So yes, we have found a great uptick in our attendance and interest of glass throughout the years of that Blown Away. Kind of doing a trial run on the size and accumulation here. But another reason to come and visit the Corning Museum of Glass is because we also have an exhibition up about Blown Away right now. Up on our West Bridge, we have the Blown Away Where Are They Now show. So we did an online call to all the participants that were on that show, not just the winners. Everybody was able to submit pieces for this exhibition. And we didn't want to focus on the work that they made on the show. We wanted an opportunity to really highlight the work that they do in their personal lives. Because honestly, a lot of the stuff that you saw on the show is very out of the realm of what people would normally make in their personal work. At least the people that went far. That was kind of the thing. A lot of the people that stuck to only what they knew, they didn't get very far in that competition. But with that exhibition, we have now 10 pieces on display from 10 artists from the show. And then we also have an online exhibition. So when you're there, you can scan the code with your phone, click on the link, and it'll bring you to an online exhibition that really highlights pieces from almost every participant in those 4 years. So a great reason to come again to the Corning Museum of Glass. And you can find some more information about those exhibitions on our website as well. So back to our task at hand. We're getting really close to the point that we're going to stuff this right inside of the other. Yeah. We got a lot of theories going, a lot of conversation. We're going to make sure that, one, we're all on the same page. But again, this is kind of a new piece for Bree. It's a new piece for us. So everybody's brainstorming, figuring out, bringing all those years of experience and expertise into a nice little brain huddle to make sure that everything's going to work out as we think it will work out. Now, part of the challenge, and when we assemble these things together, is that we want this bottom part to fit inside and then kind of inflate into the cup itself. So it's a pretty critical timing thing. I mean, everything in glass is pretty critical for their timing. You need to make sure everything is just the right temperature to make things successful. But when you start to get into complicated combinations like this, it really does make the whole process a lot more complicated. So this hot torch is really clutch. It really is so key to the success of sculptures like this. You can see as Tom kind of dusts that torch over the surface of the glass, it is heating a thick line of heat along that ridge. We need to keep the bubble itself pretty stable. So we're not getting that much above 1,000, 1,100 degrees, so it stays nice and concise. But as he heats with that torch, this torch is both gas and oxygen, burning really clean, really hot, really efficiently. And so he can focus in and just get melting right along that line. Katie's got some gloves and a big pair of shears. I think she's going to do that final cut up the middle. We use a lot of natural movement in glass. You can see how the glass is kind of sagging one way or the other, and he flips back and forth. We want to keep this glass moving just a little bit. So they're discussing even the gravity of the cut, whether they do it above, do it below. What do you need? What you need? Yeah. Beautiful. Wouldn't go too far. It's going to want to wing up when he goes back in the hole. Okay. All right, so now we've got our cut. Nice job. We're due for a round of applause, aren't we? Let's give a big round of applause to the team. Get a little energy in the room. Okay, we're not doing the second. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. All right, so when we join this together, they want a little inflation. So I'm going to go off the microphone while we do this. So, you'll guide, I'll get water on the jacqueline and bounce it off, you'll blow. Okay. Okay, cool. You want these? Yeah. Or do you want these? All right, couple final flashes. Catherine's getting some good heat in the bottom half. This is a tricky move. We want the bottom half to be moving so we can inflate it, but we need the top half right by the pipe cold enough to be able to be structural and then be able to break it free from that puntee. Bree's tucking in her braids so she can be in the action. She says she knows she needs to trim her hair when a blowpipe starts catching her braids on fire. Helen? Yes. You want it attached over there and follow you? Okay. I'll just listen. All right, so Catherine's just going to balance out these temperatures just a little bit. She uses her folded wet newspaper, which is a really great tool to be able to shape glass. A little puff. Stop. All righty. Oh, sorry. Playing jump rope over here. Which way are you going? That's how you do it, folks. Nice job. Woo! Yeah. As you can see, that would have been very difficult with only one person. So this is a really great example of how teamwork really comes together to make these kind of things happen. So now we have this bubble inflated onto the inside. So now we need to work on closing that outer form back down and around that object. So since there is some excess glass there on the end, remember we needed that puntee to be able to attach it, we're going to do a little bit of cleanup here as well. Some things you can leave in cold work later. Some things you want to be able to remove while they're hot and save yourself all the cold working at a later date. This final sculpture is going to have a lot of tentacles and other delicate parts that will be assembled together. So it would make it very challenging to be able to cold work a lot of these components. What you need, Tom? All right, a couple more questions online. Thanks again for tuning in. So yes, the boards that we're using are typically made of cherry wood or some sort of fruit wood. We like fruit woods because they have tight grain patterns, meaning that they will burn evenly and not leave any ridges or irregularities. They're fairly low in sap content, so it's not going to deposit any kind of stuff onto the surface of the glass. And for things like our blocks and other tools, that tight grain pattern also holds lots of water, which can be really helpful. Our second question was about color and how it might react to temperature or heat. And absolutely, different colors will react to heat differently. Some of it has to do with the metallic oxides or the other materials that go into that color, depending on what that melting point might be or other components. Some of it has to do with the fact that there are light colors and dark colors. If you're going to go to the beach for the day, chances are you're not going to wear a lot of dark clothing because dark things absorb heat energy, making them heat up very quickly. If you're looking at light things tend to reflect heat energy. So you can end up keeping a little cooler with something light. So if we're adding these components and multiple colors together, then yes, they do want to kind of move slightly differently as they heat and cool. We're also dealing with a lot of thickness difference in this piece. And that's really a bigger factor in the way that the glass will react, is how thick or thin it is to be heating quickly or cooling quickly as we work. But again, colors in general are made from metallic oxides, things like cobalt for dark blue and manganese for purple. And all these beautiful colors that Bree is working with right now just look pretty much orange. They're just reflecting the high temperatures of the glass rather than the true nature. So this is a really great reason that you'll want to tune in to the YouTube channel and see the final video here. Usually takes us about a week to get the final edits and everything and get it all up onto the YouTube channel, Corning Museum of Glass YouTube channel. But we'll have an image of the final piece, because once we finish this piece, we also need to let it cool down. And it generally takes at least 24 hours to cool down a piece of size and complication like this. So we won't even get to see the true colors for a couple days. But great questions. Thanks so much, folks, for all your curiosities. So one of the important roles that we have here at the Corning Museum of Glass. As demonstrators, we're here to really bring the collection to life, show you all the possibilities, and give you a better understanding of what you might see in our collection as you wander through the museum. But we're also here to engage with you folks as you come. It's one of our favorite things, being members here of the museum, is to be able to talk with the guests that come in. Every once in a while we get a couple challenging questions that really get us curious as well. We also have the Raquel Library as a great resource to be able to look up anything that we might not know, because the Raquel Library is the most comprehensive glass-related library in the world. So lots of things to research and document. One of the things that we did with all the Blown Away folks when they were here with the opening of the exhibition was to get some oral histories of their experience as glassmakers and add that to the collection of video and all the years of exciting footage that we have from that Blown Away experience. But once again, returning to the use of the torch. Torches allow us a lot of finite control on where we heat things and how hot they can be. We've got two torches that we're using here today, actually. One is called the fluffy torch. That's the one that's constantly fluffing a little bit of flame at you. We use that as a pilot light as well for our second torch, but that fluffy torch, I like to think of it as more of an insurance heat. As you torch the pieces, it's just gas that's going into that torch head. So it gets things warm and keeps things warm, but never really gets them melty. So the other torch that Bree has been using, that's both gas and oxygen. And when you add oxygen into that equation, it'll make a much hotter flame. So that torch, originally designed for flame working, which we also have demonstrations for here at the museum. Flame working is just mounting a torch like that onto a table and introducing tubes and rods into that torch to create small objects. But glassblowers got really jealous about the abilities of those torches and started to add handles to them. And now almost every glass shop that you go into will have some version of that hot torch to be able to focus heat and make quick work of melting glass. All right, so I think our form is pretty much in place. And now we're going to start adding all of those tentacles I was telling you about. So earlier in the week, we knew that we only had about an hour and a half to make this sculpture come to life. And that's not a lot of time for a lot of parts that we wanted to have included. So Bree and the team spent the first day just making all kinds of parts. We can make these objects, put them into our annealing ovens, and let them cool down to room temperature. Then we can take a look at all the parts that we made, pick the favorite ones, the ones that are the nicest, and then put them back into an oven and warm them back up. So over here on the far end of the stage, we've got what we call a garage. That garage has been keeping all those parts safe, warm, and happy. And now Katie can pull a part out one at a time. She pulls it out onto a paddle. Bree can grab hold of it, warm up the end, and then stick it right to the side of the vessel. By using just the torch to heat just the two surfaces that join together, it leaves the object itself a little bit more structural.
A little longer of a flash, Katie. Yeah, go ahead and flash. I would sealed it, but just for next time, take your time.
For two shorties.
So we're going to keep warming these up little bits at a time. So these little tentacles are green. They've got a cute little purple fin on the top edge. And then she took rods of glass and dabbed little teeny blue dots onto the inside of those tentacles. I love how the optics are playing with that stripe that went on the inside, and we got the thick glass on the outside. It's kind of amplifying, it's stretching and moving. These three-prong grabbers are really helpful. They're pretty stable to be able to grab hold of things. Anytime you're going to grab glass with metal, though, you do need to be conscious of whether that metal is hot or cold. Our components now are fairly delicate in temperature. We don't want them too hot so that they would misshape as we are reheating them, or even getting hot enough to start sticking to that paddle. So Katie does some brief flashes of heat, making sure that they're warm, but not too hot. So if we took cold metal and grabbed hold of that slightly cooler, more stable glass, that could cause a crack to form. So she warms up those little grabbers before she touches the glass. It's another reason why she also grabs corks. Corks are a really great tool because they're fairly inert. They're not hot, they're not cold. So just a little brick of cork with a wooden handle. You can use that to push and squish the glass and reshape it. But she's also using it just as a tool to help push those tentacles into the right shape. Good catch, good catch. I think that's one of the most challenging things of glass making is that you really can't touch the material. So you end up using a lot of tools. So tools become pretty much the glass blower's hands. Now we're all a bit of tool files. We always have big collections of tools that we like to play with, and you become very familiar with particular tools and how they fit in your hand. Bree came with a really lovely collection of tools, a lot of little tiny tools. Doing a lot of sculpture, you might want different shapes and unusual configurations to be able to push and make different textures, different designs, different lines, different curves. So every time one of these appendages is attached, the joint area where they're connected is really hot. So it's still kind of moving around a little bit. So Tom's challenge is every time he comes back to this reheating chamber, he's taking a keen eye and looking very closely at all those little parts. It makes it a little difficult to see what's on the far end of your pipe while you're working. But you've got a very unique view of the inside of our reheating chamber, even a better view than Tom does. And that's brought to you not because of a camera inside of the furnace, but a camera located outside of the furnace, looking through a special glass window in the very back. If you change the chemistry of glasses, you can change what they can do. And standard glass windows are made of a very similar chemistry as to the glass that we're playing with here today. So if we had a standard window in the back of our furnace, it would end up cracking through thermal shock when we turn the furnace on and melting when it reached full temperature. So instead we have something called fused silica back there. This is a glass that has a very high temperature resistance. It doesn't expand and contract as it heats and it cools, and it's very thermally stable, very optically clear. So giving you a really fun inside perspective to the backside of our sculpture. As we build this together, we're also thinking about how many of these arms are going to go on here. Every time you spin or move the glass, it kind of starts to wing that glass away from center. So tucking them back in, at least while we're building the sculpture, will make that process a little less precarious for Tom as he works. For those of you who might have joined us slightly after we got started here today, we're working with the one and only Bree Chesler here today, all the way from Seattle, Washington. An artist who loves to include lots of color in her work. We wanted to bring Bree in to help celebrate colorful glass and the exhibition that's on display. Brilliant color here at the Corning Museum of Glass. Bree's been working with glass for a little over 10 years, mostly in Seattle, Washington. Another door coming out. No, it's good. Bree started her artistic career as more of a foundry and metal workers in Kansas City State. She really was interested in art and took a class at Pilchuck Glass School, which is a fantastic educational facility outside of Seattle, and then gained employment with a local glassblower out there and started her career as a glass maker. She still does a lot of mixed media in her sculpture, and part of the conversation about these beautiful pieces that she's developing here with us, these are of course all in her realm of design, but she's also trying a lot of new things while she's with us here at Corning for this week-long residency. In the future, she will take some of these components. She's purposely leaving small holes in some of the components, leaving extra little bit of glass. And she can cold work and assemble other mixed medias onto this sculpture. So the final thing won't actually be all glass alone. You really need to get the timing just right for these kind of assemblages. Tom needs to make sure that the piece is not moving too much, but not too cold. Michael Beams joined us here to help with the torch, really maintaining temperature in the punty. Since it is the furthest thing from the heat and has a big metal pipe inside, punties tend to cool down pretty quickly. So we want to maintain the right temperature in that punty the entire time. Katie needs to have the glass in just the right temperature when she pulls it from that garage. Now the garage is designed to have what we call a hot side and a cold side. It's only a few degrees difference. But basically it's a big square box and the flame is only on one side of that rectangle box. So we can store things in the non-flame side, and that's what we call our cold side. And then when we're ready to pull them out to reuse them, we tuck them over onto the warmer side and then put them onto a paddle or a punty and even hover the objects right above the flame inside. This brings that glass up to a temperature right before it starts to melt. If we get it too hot and it starts to melt, it might stick to the table or stick to the paddle rather. So quick little flashes. Flashes are just short heats that allow you to make sure that that minimal temperature is being maintained without things moving around on you. You can see a beautiful glow coming from the object where Bree has pre-warmed the landing pad for each one of these components. By using the torch, we're able to just make that little tiny spot hot without getting everything else moving around. But Bree's going to be with us through Friday here at the museum. So if you're tuning in from fairly local, we suggest you come and see some of these objects in person. We've got a special event this evening. We're celebrating Ineon Week this week. And so we have another late night demonstration just for our Ineon members. We have a lot of levels of membership here in the museum, and a lot of those membership also help support activities like these residencies that we're hosting with Bree. So I'd like to give a big shout out to all of our members out there. Thank you so much for joining us and all you do to help support all the amazing programming that we do here at the museum. If you're interested in becoming a member, you can find the links online or come and visit in person. And your admission that day can be applied directly to that future membership. We have lots of special events throughout the year for our members. A lot of discounts in the shops, because of course we carry a lot of glass. A lot of the objects made, here locally, a lot of glass makers in their local region, and the shops is very supportive of all of those local and regional artists. So not only can you buy and purchase things in person, you can also purchase things online through our shop's website. So CMOG, CorningMuseumofGlass.org. Check it out. Lots of things to see and do, even on the website itself. You may or may not have been able to hear Bree being very directive here. She's She's the star. She's the gaffer. She's the lead. Even though we got a lot of glassmakers doing a lot of things here to make this piece come together, it's really under Bree's direction. She arrived to the museum with a master plan, had lots of wonderful illustrations, knew exactly what she wanted to try to accomplish every day with the team, and has been able to direct us every day and every hour to make sure that we're on task to make these components happen. By hosting artists here at the Corning Museum of Glass, we have an amazing facility, one that's not necessarily the classic glass studio that you'll find around the world. So it really makes a lot of things possible that really aren't possible in other studios around the country. So we like to invite artists to come and push their designs, push their capabilities. And this particular series that we've been working on with Bree is, of course, in her repertoire, but it is a new stretch for her as an artist. Trying new techniques. And you can design all day long and have theories on how everything is going to come together, but it's not until they actually happen in glass that you know whether that theory is going to prove fruitful. But to reintroduce the team that Bree has been working with this week, we got Katie Hubbs as our lead gaffer, Catherine Ayers. Yeah, let's get a big round of applause to the team here. We got Katie Hubbs, Catherine Ayers. Tom Ryder stepped in to help us out today with this slightly larger and more complicated piece, required a couple extra hands. My name's Helen Tegler. I've been on the team with Bree all week as well. Michael Beam and Abigail's been jumping in here today in between their shows. They're covering all of our classic demonstrations upstairs in the innovations area today. We got Jason on the camera here today, giving you all these great views of the action. Emma is a new member to the team here. She's doing a lot of the social media capture, and we'll be putting a couple reels together and putting that onto our social media. And Emily is your host online, really answering all your questions and making sure that our online presence is attended to. And we also like a big shout out to Alexis, who's up in the booth helping run all those cameras and getting you that great view. Well, that's one of the amazing things, and it's kind of a bonus here at the museum, is that we have such an amazing team to document what we do here, putting those films and videos, a lot of things online and onto our YouTube channel, onto our website. So if you tune into our website, or tune into our YouTube channel rather, there's thousands of hours of glassmaking, educational videos, and lots of great resources. Two or 300 pounds, Tom says. We asked, how heavy is that piece? Now, it is actually quite a bit of glass. Both of those bubbles in their own right, the two that we joined together, I would say was between 5 and 10 pounds a piece. But the complication comes when you put things 4 foot away from you. They're going to feel even heavier than if you just held them close to your body. So yes, Tom is being quite a trooper here today, hauling this piece back and forth. Happy to do so. This is one of his favorite things, to work with guest artists and to make big and fun sculptures. So trust me, he's not suffering. But we knew we needed a few extra hands today to make this particular piece. So we really appreciate you stepping in for us here to Tom, to help us out today. Yeah. Now, glass blowing in general is really not an ergonomic thing to do. So a lot of us are holding weight too far one direction in our body. We're twisting and turning, angling in weird ways, and puts a lot of stress on your wrists and shoulders. So that is a common ailment for glass blowers, is to have wrist issues, shoulder issues, back issues. A lot of old glass blowers back in ancient times might have suffered more from silicosis and other things from exposure to the raw materials and other dangerous chemicals involved in glass. But most modern glass studios don't need to worry about as much of exposure to those kind of hazards, because we are ordering our color off the internet, so we're not exposed to those raw materials. We get our color already formulated, or our clear glass already formulated together and put into what we call batch form. We're using an amazing glass here from Glasma, and they sell it to us already pre-pelletized, which means they heat all those raw materials of silica, sand, soda ash, and limestone just enough so it starts to clump together. Then when we go to pour that into the scoops to fill into our furnaces, it's pretty dust-free and very safe for our team to handle. So once again, we'd love to thank Glasma and their sponsorship for giving us support to be able to have a nice glass to offer these amazing guest artists and our daily programming here at the Corning Museum of Glass. All right, so now that we got a lot of those arms on there, now she can start to really get them just soft enough to start looking at the body language. We want to put these in all the right angle, get them curved up around that form. Use a tool, not a piece of glass. Now, before we got started here today, I also asked Bree if she had any folks that she'd like to give shout-outs to here. And she wanted to give a big shout-out to the Middle School of the Arts and her mama back home. She said that she's got a bunch of students tuning in to watch. So we hope you've enjoyed the video. Bree has been sharing a lot of stories with our team this week of all the wonderful work that she does with youth out in Seattle. Bringing up the next generation. Ooh, I love it. Really a soft heat. Everything's just warm enough. So you can use those cork paddles to push and pull this glass around. All right. Got the final approval. Bree says, it looks great. Now we just need to balance out those temperatures because even though we're finished assembling it, we're not nearly finished with the process. We need to let this glass cool down really slowly, especially with all these thick and thins, the different parts and bits and pieces. That's going to want to shrink pretty unevenly as it cools. So we're going to tuck this piece away into what we call an annealing oven. Annealing ovens are designed to keep pieces safe, warm, and happy as we allow them to cool down really slowly under controlled conditions. We take as much time as it needs for the thickest item in the oven that day to cool at a nice, slow, and even pace. So a complicated piece like this with nice, thick components, we're going to give this at least 24 hours to allow it to cool. So we won't be able to see this in its final form until it comes from the oven in at least 24 hours. But don't worry, remember you want to tune in to that YouTube channel video once it gets live. Usually takes about a week or so for us to be able to do all the post-production. And we'll put up that edited video and have a nice picture of this object at the end of that video. It's a beautiful combination of pinks and greens on the surface. Little accents of blue. Katie's getting dressed up in all of our protective gear here. Since that oven is around 960 degrees, that's pretty toasty. So she's got a nice helmet on to protect her hair and her eyebrows. You don't want to breathe up through the nose and lose all your nose hairs going into the annealer. Got Kevlar gloves, which are heat protectant gloves that will allow her to hold on to this 1100 or 1200 degree glass. She's got the baked potato suit on today too, this silver suit. This is also heat protective, and this will allow her to be nice and calm and comfortable as she carries this piece safely to the oven and sets it in there for safekeeping. So we just take a couple short heats. To make sure that the temperatures are equally balanced, nothing's moving around. We'd hate for it to sag into place when we put it in the oven. But by tradition, we're going to wait on our applause until it is safely at home in our oven. But once again, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in online. Thank you for all of the local folks that are here at the museum in person. I'd like to thank all of our members who have joined us, especially our Indian members this week, that make all of this kind of special programming possible. And one last thank you to our sponsor, Glasma, here today. We're working with their beautiful glass. And it's been a great year of all kinds of fun things using that Glasma glass. A little water on that delicate and temporary connection. little thermal stress, and a light tap. That's all it takes. There it is, safe, warm, and happy. Bree Chesler, everybody. Let's get a big round of applause for Bree and the team. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration and encourage you to come and visit us in person for those folks that are online. Thank you so much and have a great evening.